Thank you so much for being with me today, Cari. I really appreciate it. And I'd love to start by asking you to introduce yourself and give your name, your title, and what campaign or campaigns you work on at Stand.
Absolutely. So I am Cari Barcas, she, her pronouns. I'm the communications director for Stand.earth. I live here in Asheville, North Carolina, in the Blue Ridge Mountains on the traditional homelands of the Cherokee and Catawba people. And my time at Stand is spent primarily supporting the communications department. So that's supporting our amazing communications team that works on campaigns and help advancing their amazing work. I also support directly communications on the Safe Cities campaign to help protect communities from fossil fuels, phasing out fossil fuels, and scaling up clean energy.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'd love to know more. I've looked into your career history, and I want to know more about your work at Greenbelt Alliance and how that work led you to your path at Stand.
Yeah, absolutely. So Greenbelt Alliance is a nonprofit here in Asheville, North Carolina, where I worked for over 6 years prior to coming to Stand. I did a lot of work around communications with Greenbelt Alliance. I also, in my time there, advanced to associate director. So I was second in leadership and helped a lot with strategic planning, organizational growth, served as a liaison to the board of directors, along with continuing to hold communications and member engagement and campaign support and things like that.
Very neat. So you were always kind of involved in that communications aspect of climate activism. Is that correct? Would it be a correct assessment?
Yeah, definitely. So Greenbelt Alliance focuses on advancing green building, clean energy, and climate justice. So we had a variety of campaigns we ran in the community, including one to transition the city and county to 100% renewable energy, which we did secure a commitment from the city and county to that end. So once that commitment was secured, then it was sort of developing the roadmap. We collaborated with Rocky Mountain Institute and a lot of different community partners in figuring out what it looks like for a community to actually bridge that transition and do it in a way that centers equity and supports the health of the environment and of the residents in the community.
Wow. So what a perfect fit that you ended up supporting communications for Safe Cities. Did you go into Stand knowing about the Safe Cities program and excited to wanting to work from the get-go?
Yeah, I was aware of Safe Cities definitely through the interview process. I did not know that I would have the opportunity to support them in such a hands-on way. But Logan McIntosh, who is one of our colleagues that helps oversee the Safe Cities campaign, sat in on my final interview. And I think she drew some of the connections between my background and the fact that Safe needed a bit more comm support. And so it was just a really beautiful synchronistic alignment and worked out well for me to be able to help Safe out. It's also given me a really good experience as the communications director, managing some bigger picture things and helping with some sort of department-wide operations, to also have the opportunity to plug in directly to a campaign. So I can really keep my finger on the pulse of how a campaign at Stand really operates, what the strengths of our campaigns are, and how to keep advancing the work that we're doing.
Absolutely. And you do a fabulous job at that. I must say. I want to know how you got into, because I think it's such a really cool element of climate activism that I think a lot of people don't know about. It's like the fighting for those electrifying buildings is such a fascinating to me in particular. How did you get involved in that? What interested about in that? How did you get interested in that specific sector of climate?
So it goes back to the beginning of my career, actually. I started my career in journalism and worked for close to 10 years as a journalist, as a reporter and editor in the Chicago area where I lived before moving to Asheville. And my time working as a reporter really opened my eyes to the immense power that local residents and local governments have in sort of determining the future and securing the well-being of their communities. So there were a variety of different policies that I covered in my time covering local government that I saw advance in that way. And so it was really just quite eye-opening to see what an important role communities can play in shaping the direction that they head. From there, I also spent some time as a reporter covering real estate, including green building in Chicago, as it was just sort of emerging and becoming more of a mainstream focus area for the development of new buildings. And so that always really intrigued me because I became aware of what a huge source of emissions buildings are. And so seeing that as a place where we can make a really important and meaningful impact. So from journalism to coming back and kind of evolving into work in the climate movement and climate communications, this sort of theme around green building and sustainability and a community's ability to engage in shaping their own future has always been something I've been tuned into and inspired by.
That's wonderful. And I think I can name as well that communications work is so important, because being able to share those stories is what gives other people ideas and excitement about trying to get that done in their neighborhood, which is why Safe Cities is such a great program for people to get involved in and put that work into action. But I have to commend you, because that is so cool that you've been doing that work in so many different sectors as well in communication. That's so wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think storytelling is a really powerful tool for helping people see what possibilities exist. I think sometimes we aren't aware of how much power is in our own hands and what all the possibilities are. And so storytelling is a tool for opening people's eyes to different pathways that exist to improve their own lives, to improve the lives of their community. And so it's really inspiring and fulfilling to be able to tell those stories and work with so many great groups on the ground, our frontline partners who are doing this amazing work, and being able to amplify their efforts and share best practices that are coming up in certain communities to help other communities figure out what their pathway forward is to a cleaner energy future.
It's been really interesting to see like the breadth of like how these biomass companies are and now they're in fashion trying to convince the fashion community that they're a sustainable solution, even though they're a false climate solution. And the same thing with theirs impacting Black and brown communities in the southeastern U.S. Who are living next to these like biomass pellet plants. Like it's so interesting. You must be able to have such an interesting position to see those connections through those stories all throughout, and then be sharing those. What is that like to be able to see those connections from your perspective as the director of communications at Stand?
Yeah, I mean, it's really inspiring and a privilege to be able to see how intersectional this work really is, and how interconnected our different campaigns are. So I think part of our work within the communications department is really teasing out what are those common threads, what are those most innovative and inspiring solutions, and how can we scale those up? How can we inspire people to engage in action to help us move these forward? Because we know that the climate movement really is driven by a sense of hope. There's certainly some despair, some challenges that come up as we see the direction that things are heading and the increasing fallout as climate crises emerge and accelerate. However, we also know that there are solutions. Like, we have solutions in hand. We know what they are. And so to see how some of the solutions that apply to one industry or to solve sort of one sector of the climate crisis can actually be translated and applied to other sectors as well and scaled up. So it is inspiring, and it gives me a lot of hope to be able to see that we have some of these solutions, that they can be translated across industries, across sectors, and they can be scaled up effectively. So a lot of our work at Stand and within the communications department is telling the story of that hope and that possibility, and inspiring people to engage in moving this forward and accelerating the transition that we know is needed.
Absolutely. And kind of giving that picture to folks of what the world could look like if we take that action and take those, but pass those policies that are forwarding a climate safe future versus the future that the fossil fuel industry has forced us into. And I feel very much like you, very hopeful now, knowing more. Even personally, I did not know just how much was being done. And I think that is really encouraging for folks. So I think that's such an important part of the story.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on that this morning in response, just noticing my internal response to some recent news about the reality of the climate situation in front of us, and how it's quickly accelerating and how there is grief there. And just acknowledging too that there is room for grief and hope to coexist. These things are not incompatible. So we can make space to feel the grief around the climate that we are shifting away from and what we've already lost, while also remaining hopeful about solutions and really inspired by the fact that there's so much for us still to save. And so we really can't can't allow ourselves to be paralyzed by despair. We really have to hold on to that hope to kind of energize and mobilize us, because we know that there is a better future out there for us, and a climate safe future that we can work toward together.
What is something that you wish people would ask about your work at Stand?
I think one of the things that has struck me most about my time at Stand is just the brilliance and passion of the staff here, as well as that of our partners. I think that's something that has given me a lot of hope, is just seeing how bright the minds are that are working on this, how much passion and energy people are bringing to solving sort of this biggest issue of our time. And so I think, if someone were to ask me what my favorite thing is about Stand, I would really say the people, and the way that we collaborate as a team, the way that we support each other, the way that we see each other as whole humans who are living through the challenges of this time together, and how we collaborate to really build a better future. So that gives me a lot of hope and keeps me feeling energized and inspired to come to work every day, even knowing that we have some big challenges ahead of us, knowing that our strength and power in numbers working together is strong enough to carry us forward and to make some real progress.
I completely agree. That is it's what sustains us, I think, is that culture of so many intelligent folks who are working so hard together and so eager to collaborate with each other and try and find solutions, trying to get information out there, and connecting with folks on the ground. Like it is constantly amazing to me what people do here, and I'm so excited and proud to be working with you, Cari.
Why?
You don't want to say it. You need to say it.
I feel exactly the same.
Thank you. In terms of your comms work and at Stand, what has surprised you about the challenges when it comes to communications and trying to fight greenwashing, fight misinformation? What is that struggle like on your end?
Yeah, I think the reality is that the climate crises that we're facing, it's somewhat complex. In some cases, the information that we need to understand the scope of the issue, to really appreciate the scale of solutions needed, can be somewhat complex and technical. So I think, one of our greatest challenges as communicators is finding ways to translate the complex, the technical, sometimes inaccessible or overly dense information into things that people can really understand more easily, can engage with and connect to, things that have meaning. And so I think that's something that as communicators in general, part of our job is telling stories and engaging people and pulling them in. And so I think in order to engage people and pull them into the work, you first need to help them understand what's going on, what the issue is, as well as what the areas of possibility and potential and where the solutions live. So I think finding those ways to tell stories that are accessible, that are engaging, that sort of meet people where they are and bring them along with us on this journey toward climate solutions and toward a better future. That feels like a really important part of communications work for me. And it's really a joy to be able to take information that can feel sort of dense and inaccessible and tease out the threads that everyone can relate to, the things that really matter, and the reasons that we are working toward a better climate, a better, safer environment, and a healthier future for all of us together.
Absolutely. And since you've seen since your time at Greenbelt Alliance into Stand, have you seen have you seen a shift in the population and more people understanding a lot of the climate, or being more aware of the climate crisis and climate issues? How have you seen that shift?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. I think as the impacts of the climate crisis accelerate and become harder to deny or ignore, we're seeing a shift from some of the sort of climate change denial that was characteristic of maybe a decade or so ago, or even less, even still to this day in some circles. But I think there are an increasing number of people that are really tuning into the fact that this is a real problem. It's not a problem for the future. It's a problem right now, and the solutions are here right now. And so we need to make progress. We need to invest in solutions, commit commit to change right away. And we need all of us to do that. So I think there is this awakening that's been happening. Folks that I know who have not really understood the work that I've done, or like, what does it really mean to be a climate communicator? What does it mean to work in the environmental sector? Why does it matter? More and more people who are outside of the movement, who perhaps are not very tuned into environmental issues or the climate crisis, are increasingly understanding the value of this work that we're doing together. So just in my conversations on a day-to-day basis with friends and family who may not have historically really understood what I was working on or why we were working on this kind of thing, there's increasing understanding and appreciation. And I think people really are curious about what they can do to make a difference and what the solutions are and how they can engage with them. So that's part of the work of communications, is providing people information, helping to educate and bring them in on the issues that are in front of us, and then also empower them and equip them with the tools and the knowledge to be able to engage in making changes for a better future.
If you had the chance to say something to the Stand community, maybe to folks who are in that position of like, I don't know where to start. I'm clearly like maybe who just became, because of this summer, this very intense summer, has become much more aware of the effects of the climate crisis, and they want to get involved. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I would say is thank you and welcome. We need everyone to join us in this work. And even people who don't know where to start, which is all of us when we start out, even me some days, it's like, how can we make a difference individually? How can we work together collectively to affect the change that we know is needed? We all have room to learn. And so that's what we can do together. And so there's a place for everyone to engage in this movement. We need everyone involved. And so I think I just have a lot of gratitude for our community for having interest in imagining a better, safer, climate future for our world and for the next generations to come. And beyond that gratitude, I think that there's a room for everyone to play a different role, right? Everyone has different skills, different talents, different interests they bring. And so by bringing together our community of more than 1 million people now, we're really able to harness that people power and the amazing skills and amazing passion and energy that exists when we come together in that way, and harness that and mobilize it toward solutions and toward a better future. So I just have such immense gratitude for everyone in our community, for their support, for their engagement, and really for participating in this vision of a healthier climate, a more thriving environment, and a more livable planet for all of us and future generations to enjoy together.
Definitely. And I think that the Safe Cities network is such a great example of that, of creating that place for people to come together and do something in their local communities so they can take action and make a difference. Because no matter how, local, federal, wherever, that makes a difference, and it is important, and taking action, individual, collective, is so important, and giving places for people to gather and work together, and the resources that Safe Cities provides, I think, is so wonderful. So I think it must be so cool to see that, like, on the ground, like community building.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. It's amazing to see the community that is built, and the energy that is kind of built, momentum that's gathered when communities work together at the ground level. And then there's also this really cool dynamic that happens when representatives of different communities come together to share best practices. So through our NEOS network of elected officials, we're able to share policies, able to share best practices, solutions that have worked in one community that might translate to another. So yes, it's about building communities at the ground level within individual municipalities. And then it's also about connecting those threads and kind of weaving them together into an even bigger, more beautiful, powerful tapestry of what we can do together when we share information, when we build power as a collective unit. So it's pretty amazing to see that, and really exciting to be a part of it.
completely agree. I could not agree more. Yeah, I mean, there's a place. That's what I think is so fascinating about Stand. Is there's a campaign. If you are involved in an issue, you're passionate about issue, you can find it. I feel like you can find it at Stand and get involved. And like that is such a powerful place. Like you're worried about fast fashion and the impact. You're seeing the impact of fast fashion like right before our eyes. You can take action on that. And I think that is so cool that we have that power and to be able to tell those stories that connect all of those different movements is so important.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, we were talking earlier about feelings of grief that can come up around seeing how things are evolving with our climate. And I think, too, some of us feel powerless sometimes. And like, how can we really affect change on a problem of this scale? And so I think the opportunity to engage with campaigns, engage with solutions really helps us reclaim our power and realize how much power we actually have in affecting change and in moving us toward a better future. So I think the ability for folks to engage directly in Stand campaigns in that way really is such a source of empowerment for communities, for individuals, as well as for our organization collectively, just to continue to build this momentum together.
What has it been like to see this generation, Gen Z, get more and more passionate? I mean, the March to End Fossil Fuels to me is what stands out, is seeing all these incredible group of 75,000 people, so many of them young people, who are saying that they're not going to stand for fossil fuels not being phased out and not being ended.
Yeah, it is. It's remarkably inspiring. And again, as we spoke about earlier, it's really about people taking power back. So there are systems, there are forces in our world that have left corporations, governments with disproportionate power, but we know that people power is real, it's strong, it's something everyone can plug into. And so, yeah, it's been amazing to see how the next generation, how young climate leaders are really taking this cause and championing it and carrying it forward in such a meaningful way. I think we all have a lot to learn from the next generation. And yeah, it makes me very hopeful for the future to know that so many people do care, and that any amount of fear that perhaps held us back in the past really seems to be dissipating. It seems like there's a really powerful group of young climate leaders, of people of all ages and backgrounds that are coalescing around this knowledge that we need to make change happen now, not tomorrow, but now. We have no more time to waste, and we can only do it together. So seeing people come together in that way, seeing the passion that people bring, and the courage and bravery that they bring to this movement is nothing short of inspiring and amazing, and really gives me a lot of energy to continue to do what I can within my sphere to support that and to continue to build momentum with them.
Definitely. I mean, it's such a powerful reminder of like a cultural shift. Like, and I think a lot of it too, in my generation growing up, I think a lot of it, I watched An Inconvenient Truth when I was young. And so it was like so baffling to be like, why haven't they didn't do anything since they didn't see this documentary? Like, what do you mean this is not happening? And it's been really, it's been really encouraging to see just that people are talking about fossil fuels so much more openly now. I mean, for the first time, right, this COP is actually going to have the word fossil fuels mentioned, which is wild that it hasn't been in the past. But I think that is a great sign of a shift of like, no, we are holding fossil fuels and fossil fuel companies accountable. We're not going to just pretend that it's, that they're not the problem anymore. Like we're not falling for that misinformation, that greenwashing, that trying to shirk responsibility on somebody else. Like we need to hold people accountable. And I think that is very encouraging to me.
Yeah, it's true. I think the fact that we've had some of this information for so long, and certain people in power, certain industries have tried to suppress access to that knowledge is infuriating in some cases, and really frustrating that it feels like we've wasted so much time. But we have the information now, we have the access to solutions now. And so we're able to carry it forward now. And I think I've also really always appreciated Stan's approach of sort of turning adversaries into friends and into collaborators. And the idea that we are soft on people, but hard on issues, and we're holding the systems accountable. I think that's where that accountability lies, is looking at these systems, not blaming individual people, but really looking at systems that are responsible for the gridlock, the inertia, the lack of action that's characterized climate work in the past over recent decades, and then seeing how by holding those systems accountable and by making space for all people to be part of the solution, we really can mobilize more support and build that momentum and growing energy toward something better. So I'm really always inspired by that approach from Stand of being soft on people and hard on issues and holding systems accountable to drive change.
I love that. Yes, yeah. System change is what we needed. That brings us to the end of our wonderful chat. Thank you so much for talking with me, Cari. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for making this space, Karina. It was a pleasure, and always appreciate time together.
Thank you.